Hello, everyone, and welcome to our December Training Tuesday for OU Campus. Today's topic is user permission levels in OU Campus. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode as this session is being recorded. If you have a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A function found at the bottom of your screen, and I'll attempt to address your questions throughout the presentation. If there are any remaining questions I'm not able to answer during the webcast, I will provide you an answer via email. I'll be your presenter today. My name is Barb McQuillan. I'm the training supervisor over here at Omni Update. So let's just jump in and go for it. Ooh, too far. All right, so generally speaking, OU Campus has 11 options of user levels, numbers 0 through 10. So we have kind of this generalized breakdown of all of the individual user levels and kind of a generalized kind of cutoff point for what you'll see at each one. So if you're a recent new customer, you've probably seen this particular set of bullet points in any of the slides for your initial onboarding training. But there are a lot more details than this. There's a lot more nuanced permission beyond what is just in this basic kind of breakdown. So on our support site, we do have a full permissions chart. So if we go ahead and navigate there, you'll be able to see on our support site, it really does detail out each one of our individual user levels. Anywhere on this chart where you see a diamond, that is a permission that can be assigned to that particular user level by an administrator. So it is not given to them by default, but it can be assigned to them. Anything that is a check is something that they have inherently. It is incorporated into that numeric level. This is a very helpful chart when you're looking to figure out what a particular number or user level can do. But I know for a lot of new customers, this can be a little bit overwhelming as you're walking through it, just trying to figure out, well, what level do I make my particular users? So on the same page, all the way down at the bottom, there is an option here under related content called user level flowchart. So I just want to point this out quickly to you. And in here, it's essentially what was a PowerPoint deck that walks you through a set of questions. So starting on slide number 3, you're essentially answering questions about the particular user who you want to craft this user level for. So do you want your particular editor to be able to edit pages, create new content? You can kind of go back and forth, choosing what things that this particular person should be able to do. And then it will give you kind of a summary, what level to create them, and what additional permissions that you can give on a per person basis. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in our call. But this is a really nice tool in the event that you guys are looking for just kind of a simple set of questions to be able to figure out what level should I create my user as. Over here inside of OU Campus, my basic plan for today is just to kind of walk through the different levels so you can actually see any interface changes as we go through them, as well as discuss what things individual levels can and cannot do. Starting with, let's talk about what everyone can do. So I'm currently logged in as a level 0. So this is the lowest level possible inside of OU Campus. These things I'm about to show you right now, everybody can do. So everyone inside of OU Campus can navigate through the file structure. So they can go to content pages, open up folders, dig down, or come back up using the breadcrumb. Now, as an administrator, you can restrict access to certain pieces of content inside your site. So notice my underscore resources folder here. The text is black text and it is not a clickable link. So that's what it looks like if I don't have access to something. So as an administrator, you can essentially lock and close doors. So particular users don't have the ability to open up specific pieces of content in your site. But if none of that has been set, everything is accessible. All of your users can navigate through the folder structure. Other things that all users can do, by clicking on the little plug icon in the upper right-hand corner, I'll be able to see my sidebar gadgets. I can also go to my dashboard. Those have my gadgets as well. So gadgets are just little apps inside of OU Campus. They take information that's available somewhere and just bring it to my fingertips. As an administrator, you can restrict access to particular gadgets. So if you don't want all of your users having access to a particular gadget, you can restrict that. But again, without things set, your editors will have access to the gadgets. All of your editors have access to the marketplace. The marketplace is essentially a section that kind of talks about different add-ons or other gadgets that might be available. Your content editors cannot add things directly into OU Campus. They cannot make requests to like our sales team. That is only done by administrators, but they do have access to this space. They can kind of see what is available. All users have access to content assets unless the administrator essentially closes the store. So administrators can remove that option from the content dropdown, but by default, everyone has access to it. It brings you to this space that we call the Asset Manager. This is where you're able to see all of the assets in one collective space. And if the user has the ability, they can edit assets and maybe publish them out here. You'll see again, this top one here, my example asset, again, black text. It is not a clickable link. So as an administrator, you can restrict access to specific assets, but this space here is available to all of your editors unless you change that. All users have access to the reports. So reports are going to give you a listing of really different pieces of information depending upon which report you're looking at here. So if I take a look at the reports as a lower level user, so 0 through 8, the content of the reports that I will see here will only be things that I have access to or that impact me. So when I'm looking at recent saves, I'm only seeing saves on files that I have access to. So it does kind of restrict down how much content is available to be viewed here. As a level 9 or 10 administrator, I will see site-wide data. So I'd see every save that happens across my entire site. There are some additional reports that can only be seen by our level 9 and 10 administrators, but we'll talk about that when we get to those levels. Let's go ahead and take a look at an individual page here. So maybe I'll open up About, and I'll take a look at Barbara's page. All of your editors have the ability to check in or check out pages, so they can essentially take ownership of a page. All of your editors under Properties have the option for reminders, so you can add a reminder to this individual piece of content, this individual file or page. A scheduled reminder will go out on a specific date and time, and I can notify just myself or any group that I am a part of about this reminder. I can also set a stale reminder. This will keep track of the page just to make sure it's getting published regularly. So if I say it should be stale after 14 days, OU Campus will still take a look at the last published date. And if this page hasn't been published in 2 weeks, it will then send out the little reminder to me. Again, my notification here can be sent to myself or to any group that I'm a part of. So if anybody has questions as we're going, be sure to use that Q&A section that is going to be at the bottom of your Zoom window. From there, I'll be able to see and answer your questions. Other things. Let's go back to preview on this page. If I have the ability to publish out a page, which is something that as an administrator you can restrict, when I hit publish, if there are social media channels set up, that's something an administrator would have to do. And if I have access to them, again, something an administrator can restrict, I could post to Facebook or Twitter when I publish out the page. So even my lowest level 0 here, if I have access to a Facebook page, I can publish out posts to it when I publish the page as well. We had a question here asking about reminders. So what would you use a reminder for? So I often use scheduled reminders when I have a page that needs to get updated at a particular date. So if we're talking about year-end exams, and I know that I need to come in here and update this by the end of April, I'll give myself a reminder here, set it for the end of April, so that way it'll send me that message, because if I scroll down a bit here, as long as my user profile has an email address associated with it, I can send an email to myself. So it's one of those nice things inside OU Campus where I don't have to sit here and babysit the page. I can just have that reminder sent out to me, and it will give me an email so I know, oh, I have to go in and update that. So that's what I tend to use scheduled reminders for, when particular pages or particular content needs to be updated on some date in the future, but I don't want to have to manually remember it. The stale reminder is really for pages that need to stay updated and regularly updated. So things like community pages, things like that, where it's really important that the page content is fresh and updated regularly. That's what I would use this daily reminder for. Okay, good. Talked about that. Excellent. For taking a look at my user level here, so my profile here inside of OU Campus version 11 is just this little drop down with my little image here. You're going to notice that all of the images that I've created here are just the number, so we can kind of easily figure out which user we're looking at. But if I take a look at settings, other things that are available to everyone. Just about everyone can have an approver set on their user level, and just about everyone can have an enforced approver on it. The only level that does not have that is a top level 10 administrator. Everybody else, including a level 9, can have an approver assigned to them and can have the approver enforced. So even your assistant administrator, level 9, can still be involved in a workflow that they have to follow. Scrolling down, the other thing that could be provided to anybody is this add to dictionary. So when you're editing content on a page and you run a spell check, if any of the words are flagged as misspelled, you can have this ability to essentially add that word to your dictionary. That dictionary is for the entire site. So all of the users that are making edits in the site will have access to that word as it has been added to the dictionary. So that can be added to individual users on a case-by-case basis. So that ability is not associated with any number. It is this singular checkbox that can be turned on for individual people. All right, so that walks us through kind of the everybody stuff. So let's start talking about the individual user numbers themselves. And we'll start by talking about this level 0 who I'm currently logged in as. So as the level 0, this particular user level is considered a reviewer. They do not have the ability to make edits anywhere. So this is not the user level that you want to assign to someone who actually needs to be able to get into the content and make changes. This is more of a step along an approval process. This is a person who's giving their stamp of approval. That's really what this user level is for. So if I go back to this page that we had taken a look at before, you're going to notice in my tabs up here at the top, I don't have an edit tab. It's because I can't. There are no big green editable region buttons on the page. They're not visible to me because I am a level 0. You'll notice if I go under properties, I don't have the option for parameters. That is a space where I can make edits to the page, so I don't have access to it. I can see the versions list. However, if I take a look at my actions on any individual version, I don't have a revert option. So I cannot roll a page back to a different version. That is not possible for a level 0, because again, that would be a change to the actual page content itself. It's not something that a level 0 can do. Level 0 can only publish or submit if they're involved in an approval process. So publishing pages, or if they have access to assets, they'd again be able to publish the asset. But again, no edit options here, no opportunities to be able to roll back to a previous version. It's just take a look at it and publish it or submit it up the line to the next person. Going back into my user settings, you're going to notice under restrictions, I don't have any additional checkboxes that could be chosen to add additional abilities here. I just have my user level, whether or not an approver is set on this particular person or not, whether or not that approver is enforced, meaning, is this person that my administrator has chosen in this Dropbox a suggestion or am I locked to them? I find that most of the time when an approver is set up, that enforced checkbox is chosen as well, just to be able to lock the choice you are submitting to that person. And then lock users for an administrator in situations where I need to keep users out of OU Campus. So maybe I'm doing final preparations for my go live. I don't want any of my users here inside of OU Campus because I don't want them making edits or changes until after the go live has happened. So your administrator could essentially click that checkbox to lock users out, to just temporarily ban them from being able to log into OU Campus. But nothing else that can be added here. That's it. That is my level 0. My next set of levels, and let's take a look over here. My next set of levels starts with level 1. So inside of OU Campus, levels 1, 2, and 3 are all kind of grouped together as contributors, and there is no inherent difference in the abilities of a user level 1, 2, or 3. I usually see schools choose the different numbers based upon their own internal hierarchy. So maybe you have a more veteran staff member who is going to be assigned a level 3, and you have a more junior staff member who's going to be assigned a level 1. On the base, though, there is no difference in their abilities. If there are additional permissions that you wanted to give, you could give it to any of those levels 1, 2, or 3. But again, I sometimes see schools will use a level 3 as kind of a visual indicator for, oh, I've given them all of these extra checkboxes. All of these additional permissions I assign to my level 3. My level 1, I don't check any of the checkboxes. So it's just kind of a way to internally keep track of who can do what as a quick visual. But from a baseline perspective, there is no difference between levels 1, 2, and 3. So what can these people do? Well, going over to content pages, levels 1, 2, and 3 can edit content that already exists. So let's go ahead and open up a page. Maybe we'll take a look at the content page here. Notice I do have the tab option for edit, and I do have my editable regions, which I can open up and make edits and changes to. If I go into versions, I'll again see all of the different versions of the page that have existed. And this time, when I click on the more actions, I do have the ability to revert a version. This will allow me to roll the current content inside OU Campus to a previous version, or even one that has existed, but I haven't published yet. Over to properties, still do not have page parameters though. Page parameters are not available to users this low. Other things that users levels 1, 2, and 3 can edit include things like assets. So going to content assets, when I open up an asset now, I do have the ability, once I have it checked out, to see an edit. So I can come in here and make edits to my assets. That again can be locked out on an asset by asset basis. So if I come back to my assets list, notice again, Barbara's example asset is still the black text. That is one that I am locked out of. I'm restricted from being able to make edits and changes to that one. But the others that are available to me, I can still open up and edit. Another kind of special note when you are editing pages, sometimes your content editors may need to edit news pages. So if I take a look at a news page, let's take a look at this article here. My levels 1, 2, and 3 do have the ability to edit the content of this page, but they also, let's check it out and go to properties, have a way to be able to make edits to the RSS item. So news pages are unique, and your particular implementation may have something a little bit more custom or slightly different. But if your implementation in OU Campus is using RSS, each individual article page is associated with an RSS item. They can be found here under properties and under RSS. An RSS item is just a selection of fields here that are used on listing pages. So it's really just kind of the data entry associated with this article. So on my listing page, this would be the article's title, this would be the article's description, and then if any of these other fields are used, those would be included on the listing page too. So from here, if my content editor needed to update it, maybe there's a typo somewhere, maybe something needs to be adjusted, I could make my edits and changes to this RSS item, which will update the information on my listing page. I can save it. And when I make changes to an RSS item, I do need to rebuild the RSS feed, which will essentially take the change and push it out so my listing page sees it. So all of that can still be done by levels 1, 2, and 3. We have a question here. Is there a way to change all asset access, or would it have to be changed individually? So there is a way to essentially restrict content to assets. This would allow you to kind of lock this door. There is also a way from an administrative standpoint to take that setting and push it down into every asset that is inside of your asset manager presently. So you could do it in a big batch operation, but it is an all operation. You would not be able to hand choose. So if there are only certain ones in here that you wanted to change, those you would need to do on a case-by-case basis. You'd have to do them individually. When we get to our level 10 administrators, I'll share with you guys some information about how you go ahead and lock that door into all of the assets and the asset manager itself. All right, so those are the abilities that are ingrained into user levels 1, 2, and 3. Let's talk about the additional things that you can have. So clicking on my user, we're going to take a look at settings. We'll scroll down here and you're going to notice in my restrictions panel, I have a whole bunch of checkboxes. You can allow your users levels 1, 2, or 3 to be able to edit the source code of the PCF page itself. You can allow them to upload files, to overwrite, and to delete assets and recycle pages. So I have created another user that has all 4 of these turned on. So let me log out of here and log in as them so I can show you what that looks like. Okay, so I am now logged in as level 1, all the permissions. So the differences that we see here, if I take a look at that library page again, I now have an additional tab called source. This will bring me to the source code of the PCF file. This is not just plain old HTML. This is the XML that is associated with really the editing experience inside of OU Campus. So if you have a level 1, 2, or 3 who is comfortable editing in source code, meaning HTML, they may be comfortable editing source code in here, but they would need to be cautious as they're making edits in here because XML has a very strict syntax. You want to make sure that that is maintained in order for the page to continue to render properly. But there are spaces in here that are pure HTML. There's my P tag, there's my image tag. So they could come in here and make edits. Back to my pages list. The next permission that could be granted to a level 1, 2, and 3 is upload. So this would allow me to go ahead and upload files into OU Campus. So it's usually like binary files, images, PDFs, things like that. That is its own permission. Another permission is the ability to overwrite. So if my user did not have the ability to overwrite, I wouldn't even see this checkbox. But since that checkbox was checked for this particular user, this field allows me to upload a file with the same name as a file that already exists here inside OU Campus. So I often see this used when a school needs to, say, update a document regularly, but they don't necessarily need to have the old one still up for archiving purposes. So maybe it's this year's application, and you guys have it as a PDF. I want to make sure that the last year's application, which had a couple of different questions, is not still accessible, because I don't want people accidentally grabbing that one and filling out the wrong application. So in that case, I could overwrite the existing. So the old one will still be part of my version history, but it won't be live on my website anymore. Whenever I overwrite through an upload like this, I still need to publish the page. I've only uploaded it and overwritten here inside of OU Campus. The page still needs to be published out in order for that change to be live. The last checkbox we had was the ability to delete. So if I'm talking about a page itself, in my More Actions menu, under File, the content editor would have the ability to move it to the recycle bin. Under Content, they'll gain a new space called Recycle Bin. So anytime a file is recycled, you can always go into the recycle bin and essentially restore it back to its original location. So pages or individual files that are in this file list here would get recycled and sent to the recycle bin. Assets are not sent to the recycle bin. So if I'm looking at an individual asset here and I click that More Actions menu, the only option I have here is to delete it. So this would permanently delete it. So that would be something you'd want to be cautious about to make sure you don't accidentally delete out something. At that point, you would essentially have to rebuild it if you needed it again, and then you'd have to go find the places where it used to be and replace the old one with the new one. All right, so that walks us through the abilities of levels 1, 2, and 3. Question, is there a way to remove all custom toolbars at the page and folder level rather than doing individual pages and folders? We would like the whole site to be consistent. We have many old pages where people change the setting, and I believe you need to publish it for it to take effect, as can be a chore to clean this up. Okay. Custom toolbars, just to give context on this question, are a way for administrators to restrict which toolbar options a content editor would see. So if I go ahead and open up that library page again. Come on, internet, you can do it. I apologize for the slowness. It's one of the magic things about working from home. All right, so this is your toolbar here. An administrator can create a custom toolbar and essentially remove buttons. So maybe I don't want my content editors to have access to the text color or the background color. I want all of that controlled in my CSS. So the administrator could create a toolbar that removes these and then assign that toolbar either to individual users or to pieces of content. If you wanted to assign a custom toolbar to all pages or remove a custom toolbar from all pages, so that way no pages had custom toolbars at all, you can do that essentially from the top level as a level 10 administrator. So when we get to the level 10, I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do that. And let me make a note so I can remember all the things that I'll show you guys when we get to level 10. So I'll show you how to assign a custom toolbar or remove a custom toolbar. And I'll show you the asset access to be able to do a sweeping assignment for assets. Okay. So that is our levels 1, 2, and 3. Let's take a look at level 4. Level 4 is still considered a contributor. They can still create new pages and content. So if I go to content, or excuse me, they can still upload content, but the new thing that we have here is essentially this ability to create new content. So when I go to my pages list, I now have the plus new option. When I click plus new, I'll be able to see all of the template files that I have access to. As an administrator, you don't have to give every single editor all of the different options that are available across your entire site. You could restrict certain templates to certain people. So what I will see here is essentially just the templates that I have access to. In addition to creating new pages, sections, or things like that, under content assets, I again get the option for a plus new. So in here, I can create a new asset. Each one of these asset types can be restricted. So if you don't want your typical content editors creating, say, source code assets, you could restrict an individual asset type in this plus new creation. I have a question. I would like to know how to restrict access to templates when you get to level 10. I will make a note. Okay. So that's really the big difference that we're seeing between our levels 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll get to level 4. Level 4 has the plus new button. That is not something that you can hand to someone lower level. It is only available from level 4 and above. And so taking a look at the user settings for my level 4, you're going to notice the options here look remarkably similar to what we were seeing before. As soon as my page decides to load. So scrolling down here, my additional abilities here are the same 4 additional abilities I could have given to a level 1, 2, or 3. So edit the source code, upload files, overwrite, or delete. So all of those are the exact same processes we saw before. All right, moving on, let's take a look at a level 5. So one of the big differences here when we get to a level 5 is a level 5 can edit page parameters. So over to content pages. Say we'll open up a file in here. Maybe we'll look at the study abroad page. As long as the page is checked out to me, when I go to properties, I'll see an option in the left-hand side that says parameters. The light bulb is turned off. I will not see parameters. It's just because it's an editing space. And if I don't have ownership of the page, I can't edit it. So clicking on that light bulb brings my parameters back. Good. So parameters is going to be uniquely customized to your school's individual implementation. Generally speaking, you'll usually see metadata in here. So the meta title, description, keywords, other meta fields may appear in here as well based upon your website. This is where you'll see tags. Tags can be used for a couple of different things. Tags make it easy to search for content inside of OU Campus. So when you go searching for content, you can filter by tag and then focus in on just the content that has that particular tag. Tags can also be leveraged depending upon your website design. So I have seen some schools who will create tags and use that as categories for filtering on the live site. So that could be something like filtering news articles or blog posts or things like that. I also see tags used for our OU search appliance. So you can use tags in order to essentially flag pages to the search appliance to categorize pages and make it a little bit easier for your web visitors to search for specific types of content. So lots of different uses for tags, but moral of the story here is you cannot add them onto a page unless you're a level 5 or above. Other things that you see in here are totally based upon your design. So my sandbox has a lot of different options in here, turning on and off regions, options for my different columns about what should be turned on and off. This is because my website has these options. Yours may be different. You may have a lot more individual questions and prompts here. You may have far fewer. It all depends upon your website design and the decisions that were made during the implementation itself. Back to my settings here. Again, you're going to notice the abilities that can be added here look remarkably familiar. So I can allow this particular user to edit the source, to upload files, to overwrite files when they upload, or to delete or recycle content. So all of those as we saw before. All right, that is the end of all of the windows that I pre-logged in. So let's go ahead and manually log in as our next option here, which is a level 6. Just like levels 1, 2, and 3, levels 6 and 7 are essentially the same base abilities. So there's no inherent differences between what a level 6 and what a level 7 can do. I see schools use 6 and 7 to differentiate for their own internal hierarchy, or it's just a numerical reminder that, ooh, level 7s, I'll set you as a 7 if I click these checkboxes. I'll set you as a 6 if I don't. So that can be used internally to just kind of help structure things. Big difference here when we go to content pages is you're going to notice the upload button. So for users levels 1 through 5, I could on a case-by-case basis give them the ability to upload, or on a user-by-user basis. In the case of a level 6, it is an inherent ability. I cannot take upload away from a level 6. So 6 and above will all inherently have the ability to upload. That's really the big difference here. Over to my level 6 settings. Scrolling down, I've now replaced one of those allow. So I still have the ability to edit source. I still have the ability to allow the overwrite or the delete. But now for my level 6 and 7, I can give them this ability to do a zip import. I do not have zip import on this particular user. So allow me to log out and log in as a level 6 that I gave the ability to do zip import. So I can show you what that looks like. So this is a level 6 that has all of the checkboxes checked. So going to content pages, when I hit upload, I now have one more option here in this type, which allows me to import a zip file. Importing a zip file will take a file from my computer that is a zip, and it will automatically extract it. So I don't have to do that process manually before it comes into OU Campus. This is super helpful, especially when I'm importing like a lot of binary files, a whole bunch of images, things like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at sample images. I have a images.zip here. When I click start upload, I want to make sure that I have import zip file checked. If I don't and I have it just as upload file, it will literally upload the zip file and I will have a zip file here. I don't want to do that. I actually want to extract it. So I need the import zip file. Start upload. OU Campus is going to scan that zip. It's going to look through it to see, well, what's inside of here? What content do we have? And it'll start the extraction process as it goes through it. From here, it'll now show me essentially a summary of what it found inside here. If there are files inside of OU Campus that are repeated here, I will get errors. So it will give me a little flag that says this file is already here. And I would essentially just uncheck the ones that are giving me errors so that way they don't come over. I could also overwrite them. That will allow me to make this new zip upload the newest version of those files. I also have the ability to ignore the root folder. So by default, that's checked. And what it essentially means is I have a folder called images, which is essentially the container that all of these zipped content are in. Do I want to keep that top level folder called images? Or do I want to ignore that top level folder and just bring the contents inside of it? By default, it's going to ignore that top level folder. But if I uncheck it, it will give me that top level folder. In this case, it was called gallery. And then everything else will be placed inside of it. So that is the process of uploading a zip file. And again, that would be something that you could provide as an ability to your level 6 or level 7. Logging out here, let's go ahead and take a look at the world as a level 8. Level 8 is considered a designer level. So a level 8 gives you a certain amount of information architecture organizational powers. Over to content pages, for content that my user has access to. So here's my about folder here. If I click on the 3 dots under file, I can rename the file. I can move it to a new location instead of OU Campus, or I can make a copy of it. I can also delete it. All of these are the beginnings of this information architecture power that level 8s have. They are only able to make these actions on content that they have access to. So notice I have this folder here, this underscore testing, that ... the more actions menu is grayed out. I cannot perform those actions on something that I do not have access to. I can only perform those actions on things that I have access to. The same goes for when we're looking at individual pages. So on an individual page here, if I click the more actions under file, I can rename, move copy, or move the file itself into the recycle bin. Recycle bin is an inherent ability for a level 8. So it's something I could have given on a user by user basis to my lower levels, but as a level 8, it is built into the number, so I cannot take that away. Since they have this ability to recycle, under content, recycle bin will appear for a level 8. This information architecture power also applies to assets. So on an asset here, under file, I can rename, copy, or delete it. Now, one more thing that a level 8 has power over is really governance. So it's an ability for them to assign access to content. So let's say I am the department chair of a particular department. Let's see if we have an example that we could use here. Okay, so I'm the chair of the athletics department. I am in control of this entire section of my site, and I want to be a little bit more nuanced in the access settings. So I would need a level 10 administrator to create groups for me. I cannot do that. But once they have groups created for me, I can assign access to individual pieces of content in here. So clicking on the More Actions menu, under Edit, I can go to Access. And this allows me to assign access to my individual pieces of content. I can do the same for folders. So over to my athletics section, clicking on the three dots, under Edit, I can assign access to the folder. This is not a recursive assignment, meaning when I make this assignment, it is for the folder itself. It is not going to get pushed down to any content that's inside of it. So it's essentially locking the door, but inside here, all of my windows are still open. So as a level 8, I make this access assignment on a singular item basis. Again, in order to make that access setting, I do need to have access to the content myself. That is a level 8. Let's take a look at a level 9. A level 9 is considered an assistant administrator. So level 9s do not have access restrictions. So even if they are not included in a group that has been assigned to a particular asset or a particular piece of content, like a page or a folder, level 9s bypass that. So over to content pages, you're going to notice that underscore resources folder, which has been locked for everybody else, is not locked for me. Level 9s will be able to click in and open everything. That is true here inside of my pages. That is true in here inside of my asset manager. I have access to all of those things. Under reports, the level 9 is the first level who will be able to see site-wide results. So when I choose recent saves here, I'll be able to see the saves across the entire site. I'll be able to see all of the actions that are taking place. Additionally, level 9 and 10 have 2 additional reports in here. A site check allows me to run a link check on the entire site or any portion of it here. So it's kind of like going to each one of the pages and clicking the link check, but it does that in a centralized location and then aggregates all the results into one report. I also have access to my custom reports. Custom reports allow me to focus in on any one of these different kind of content ideas and drill down from there. So if I wanted to run a user's report, when I come here, I have all of these different things that I can turn on for this individual report. So let's go ahead and turn everything on. And when I run my report, I'll be able to see all of that information being provided to me. Back to my report back to my report options. Reports in here can be run on users, on groups, on individual pages, on the directories themselves, on the site information. Page products are the products of a page. When I click publish, the thing that is produced is my page product. So while my page inside OU Campus has a PCF extension, my page product is going to have the .html or the .php or the Dart PDF, whatever it is that is the result of the publish. That's what this report is looking at. It's looking at the products of the publish. I can also run reports on assets. And then if I have my social media channel set up here, I can see reports on any tweets or Facebook wall posts that have been pushed out when a page was published. Additional things that a level 9 now has access to are snippets. So snippets are used as design elements. More often than not, they're created as table transformations. So inside the editor, your content editor will see individual snippets inside the editable region as if it was a table. And then they enter information into the table cells. And then in the background, the XSL grabs that content, puts it into the right place inside of the HTML that will be produced, rendered, and then published out to the live site. Level 9s are the first level that have access to the snippet manager. So in here, you can create new categories, which allows you to essentially just organize your snippets into little buckets. And you're able to edit and create new snippets here. So if I open up one of these snippets, I can adjust its name, which category it's in, whether or not it's available to all of my sites, or it should only be seen in particular sites as an option. I can restrict who or which group of users has access to this. So who can place it on one of their pages. The description purely for me. This is so that way I know what this snippet does, because it truly is just a chunk of source code. Back to content pages. There are additional things access-wise that a level 9 has the ability to add. So taking a look at that About section, we'll click on that More Actions menu, and under Edit, we'll take a look at Access. First thing to notice up here at the top is this option for recursive modification. Recursive modification allows me to take a setting that I'm about to create and push it down into all content inside of here. So I'm looking at the About folder itself. I can apply these changes to just the folder, or I can apply it to this folder and everything inside of it. Other files, child folders, going all the way deep. Super powerful ability, but keep in the back of your mind, there is no undo for access settings. So if I make a change here and push it down into all files and folders, if I need to change it, I'm now going back to maybe each one of those files and folders and adjusting on a file or folder basis. So super powerful, but just make sure that the adjustments that you're making are the ones you're intending to make. When I do choose this second option, each of my options down here gets a little checkbox next to it. This is how I select, this is the setting I'm pushing down. So it's just kind of an extra step to make sure that you're kind of making that acknowledgement. Yes, this needs to get pushed down. The other ones will not. Access group, we saw level 8 has access to that one. They're able to set the access group for content, but there are some more options here for a level 9. Template group is where you would set the templates that will appear when a content editor hits plus new. So this is the selection that are available in this space. Random templates is probably not very helpful for demonstration purposes, but if we take a look at, say, news, we look at the access settings here, this is a template group for news. So inside of the news section, when you hit plus new, you only have the option of creating a new news article. It's a nice way that, it's a nice way to kind of guide your content editors about this content type goes here, this content type goes here. Toolbar allows you to assign a custom toolbar to this piece of content. And again, if you choose that recursive modification to everything inside of it. RSS feed only applies if this section is going to have like news articles or things like that that are going to get aggregated up into an RSS feed. That would be assigned here. It just basically tells this section, hey, if you find a news article in here, just put it into this RSS feed. Do that automatically. Publish to production is only available in version 11. Publish to production allows you to restrict whether or not these files should get published. So it is a way to essentially set a flag on pages that maybe aren't ready to go out yet. You're not ready to have those published, or for pages that just don't need to be published. It restricts that publication process. So even if you're doing a publish for like the entire site, these would get skipped. Exclude search is not about your live website. This is not about Google's and Yahoo's and all of the other search engines out there. This exclude search is for internal OU campus. When you click on that little magnifying glass, this is your global search. So it allows administrators to remove pieces of content from searchable content in this list. I often see schools use this setting for things inside like the _resources folder, where you don't want your typical content editor accidentally finding like the CSS or the JavaScript for your file and then accidentally breaking something that breaks things on your live site. As an admin, you can essentially remove it from the searchable content by using that exclude search. Last option we have here is directory variables. Directory variables are variables that you set on directories. They're essentially variables that you're setting that allow you to pass information down to all content that is inside of this particular section. There are a couple that are built into OU Campus itself, things like the default image folder. So when your content editor goes to insert an image into their page, where do they get dropped off? There are some that are customized to specific schools. So I've seen some schools where they have a choice of headers, like this is the red header, this is the blue header, and different sections should have a different color. So in those cases, our implementation will include a directory variable for administrators to choose that color, something like that. That is completely based upon your school's website design. Okay, talked about all those, great. Other things that you can do, hovering over edit, level 9 can assign tag access. Tag access essentially defines restrictions when a content editor who would be a level 5 or above is adding tags onto content inside of here. A fixed tag is a tag that is applied to every piece of content that's in here already. So if you know that everything in here should all have a tag on it, you can add it here as a fixed tag. This will make sure that all new content that's created has it. If you want to make sure all content that's already in here has it, notice this update options. I have to choose the second option. Apply the select setting to the folder and everything enclosed inside of it. And at that point, I get the choice of whether or not to just add whatever I'm about to do to existing tags or to overwrite any tags that already exist and then make these changes the new standard. So fixed tags will automatically be applied to all the files inside of here. Filtered tags essentially change the drop-down list. So rather than your content editors having the entire list of all of the tags available in the entire account, it will just give them this filtered list. You can only choose these ones. So it's a nice way to kind of reduce the amount of clutter that your content editors may see in tags, and then just to make sure that they're using them efficiently. These are the ones that should be used in here. Taking a look at my user settings, going to level 9 and looking at my settings. So I have far fewer checkboxes here, and that's simply because as an admin, I pretty much have all the powers we were talking about before. There is an option here to disallow source. So by default, a level 9 administrator can edit source code on pages. They have a little source tab, they can open up that code. This checkbox would be if this particular person should not have that source code ability. And then they have the option to allow WebDAV access. WebDAV is essentially a way to direct FTP into OU Campus and make edits without being here inside of the interface. And the nice thing about using WebDAV is that it maintains the check-in checkout system. So all of that stays consistent whether you're in the WebDAV client or you're here inside of OU Campus. By default, allow WebDAV access is turned off for individuals, but it can be turned on. An important note about WebDAV access, it needs to be enabled on the account level. So it's something that your top level, your level 10 administrator would need to allow for the account in order for this to be available. Okay, so that is our level 9. Now let's take a look at the top of the top. We'll go ahead and log in as a level 10. Perfect. So just like the level 9, there are no access restrictions here. Under content pages, I can open up and get to everything. Under content assets, I can open up and get to everything. On my add-on menu in Marketplace, level 10 is the only level who can add new gadgets for the marketplace or directly contact the OU sales team if there are modules in there that they're interested in. So only a level 10 can do that. Level 10 is also the only user has the ability to publish out an entire folder. Your other user levels can select multiple individual files in order to make a publish. But only a level 10 can select the folder itself to publish out all the content inside of it. Additionally, only a level 10 can do a full site publish. Under setup, going to sites, And then from that sites row, from the more actions menu, they can publish out the entire site from here. They can also publish out a sitemap. Sitemap will go through all of the pages that have not been flagged to not be included in the sitemap, and will generate out a sitemap.xml and drop it at the root of the site. Good. Let's talk for a quick second about some of those other things that we were asking about before. So from this setup sites view under edit, I can go to site access and I can choose the second option. So take the settings I'm about to make and push them into all existing files and folders. So the question about the custom toolbar, if you have some rogue toolbars out there all over the place, you could at the site level change it to really this default value called inherit from user. This will essentially wipe out any custom toolbar assignments that are across the entire site. Remember, there is no undo. So if there are some toolbar assignments that you want to keep, after you do this step, you'd have to go back and one by one reassign those to your pieces of content. Cancel. There's a question about asset access. So again, under edit, if we go to an option called asset access. From here, this top level, applying all settings to new asset only, essentially applies it to anything that will be newly created. But if you wanted to change, say, the access group for everything, you choose the second option. All new assets and all of the settings here all get applied down to anything that exists. So this would be a nice way to be able to sweep through and change the access here. Now, an important thing to be aware of, the access group here is not just on the individual assets themselves, it will be on the item under content. So if I set asset access to admins only, it will mean only admins will see content assets. Question, can you explain using expiring page and how to get it out of search? I think that's two questions, so give me 1 second on that and we will loop back to it. Okay, got that, talked about that, perfect. So that's our asset access. Level 10s are also the only ones who have access to the setup menu. Inside the setup menu, this is where you would essentially control your account level settings, your site level settings. All of those high level settings are controlled here and only by level 10s. So there's a question about template access. How would you assign that? Under setup, there's an option here called templates. This takes all of the possible options when I hit plus new and shows them to me here in cards. On each one, they have an option for access. So if I don't want my typical content editors being able to create course subject pages for my course catalog, I could restrict this to a different group. Good. Other menu items that are restricted only to level 10. Under content, you have components. This is essentially your component manager. This is where you would create new components or edit existing components. That can only be done by level 10. Also under content, you have RSS. This is where you would create new RSS feeds or be able to edit existing ones. So creating the feed itself must be done first before you can create news articles and add them into it. But once the feed is created, it kind of just runs from there. So oftentimes I see schools will create their feeds initially and then kind of just go with them and let them continue running. Level 10 also only has access to find and replace under content. Find and replace is super powerful. It allows you to search content across your entire site. And it'll search source code as well. So if there's a particular class that you're looking for that's on certain divs, you can target that either with a little literal text or even with a regular expression. Good. Back to content pages. Other things that a level 10 will have access to on my more actions under edit access, they are able to assign approvers to content. So I can add an approver to the section itself. I can enforce it. And I can also set a bypass approval group, which is the group of people who don't adhere to this approval requirement, and they can just publish if they're in here. Levels 10 can set extension restrictions. So if I have an images folder, but I don't want people uploading GIFs, I can disallow the GIF extension on this folder. Image size sets. So again, if it's an image folder, when someone uploads an image size set would allow that, OU Campus to essentially duplicate that image in different sizes. So if your website requires very specific sizes for the responsive design, you could set it up as an image size set and then have that duplicate out. So it does it all automatically. URL type is essentially what format URLs will take if they're not dependency tags. So generally speaking, I see this usually just listed as inherit from site settings, but if you have a particular section that had a particular need, you could change it here. Publish to the production we saw, exclude search. I think this might be part of what the question that we had before was. Exclude search is just inside of OU Campus. That is to keep it outside of my global search when I click the little magnifying glass up here. Now, if I wanted to remove it from search results on like the Googles, the Yahoos of the world, a good way to start that process is this second option here, exclude from sitemap. This will mean that the content that I've chosen here will not be added to the sitemap, which search engines tend to use in order to make sure that they've caught every page that's a part of your site. If you're looking to exclude or to be more specific in exclusions, I recommend adding a robots.txt file at the root of your site. There's all sorts of information online for that. And believe it or not, Google has a really good reference page about creating robots.txt files. So I would recommend that if you're looking to figure out a way to make sure that is removed from search results. Level 10 also has the ability to decide whether or not publishes from this section or pages in here should trigger webhooks. Webhooks is a setting that can be set by the administrator inside the setup menu. And it essentially sends out a little status message when pages get published. And then there, you guys can write your own script to do things. Maybe you're creating a nice display. Maybe you're having it take additional actions after that. All of that is up to you and your imagination for what you would want it to do after that point. The last thing to call out that a level 10 can do, under File, they have the ability to do a dependency scan and a dependency revert on individual sections inside of OU Campus. Dependency scan will go through each page and each link in the content of these pages and then turn them into dependency tags. Dependency revert flips it the other way. It takes the dependency tags and puts the hard-coded paths in there instead. Dependency scan is super helpful if you do like a mass import or something like that, just to make sure that everything is now caught by Dependency Manager and all of the links are assigned appropriately, and Dependency Manager is keeping track of it. So only a level 10 can run those actions on a section itself. All right, so that sums up all of the different user levels. Let me loop back here to see, okay, so the question that we had was, can you explain using expiring pages and how to get it out of search? So when you are looking at an individual page that is already live, so it looks like this one down here is live. If this page has to come down at a specific time, so maybe this is an alumni event for this weekend, and I want to make sure that it comes down Monday morning. Under my little drop down here, I have the ability to schedule an expiration. This would essentially bring the page down. It will either replace it with new content or completely recycle it out of my OU Campus list. When I recycle a page inside OU Campus, it will bring it down off of my live website. So that is an important thing to know. So let's say Monday morning, this should come down. I can schedule the time. I can set up a notification. This page down, and I can even send a copy to my email, and I schedule it to expire. When this page comes down, External search engines won't automatically know about it. So when they do an index, of my website, it is not done every day. I've seen some things where, like, if you submit a sitemap to Google, they will put your website kind of further ahead in the list, but there's no immediate time frame. I think the promise that they make is it'll get reindexed within 2 weeks. So if you are expiring a page like this, and you are concerned that there are links out there that people won't, or that people will try to go to, you can either set up a redirect on your production server. So when they try to go here, they get redirected somewhere else. So maybe back to the base of the site. You can remove the content from this page, and instead of expiring the page, simply publish it out with content that says, this alumni event has passed, you know, check back next week for more information or something like that. So expiring the page will recycle the page, send it to the recycle bin inside of OU Campus. It will bring it down off of your production server, but live search results, those often are cached by your Googles, your Yahoos of the world. Those won't update automatically. Providing them with a new updated sitemap is a good way to get the process running, but having a redirect in place for when this page comes down is a good way to answer that. All right, good. Okay. At this point, I'll open it to you guys for any additional questions. And as you're typing, allow me to just mention, our next Training Tuesday is going to be held on January 26, 2021. My goodness. At that point, we're going to be covering the topic of Preview Mode Accessibility Checker. So for those of you who saw Billy Woody's Training Tuesday a few months back, and he was kind of showing off this really neat Preview Mode CSS overlay, he's going to be walking through how to actually build that. So that will be January 26, 2021. All right, other questions. You can manually remove a page from search results using this link. Ooh, how helpful is that? I'm going to click the, well, let's click the link because that sounds like fun. So it looks like Google Search Console allows you to actually remove outdated content. I'm going to click the little button over here so that way you guys see it in the Q&A as well. So you have that. That's neat. So that would apply for Google. So if any of your people are using Yahoo's or something else, it won't immediately update. But, you know, people do say the word, I'm going to go Google it. So I think you probably have a large number of people who are using this particular search engine for things. That is very helpful. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, in that case, I want to thank you all for joining me today as we walk through our user permission levels. Do keep an eye on our Training Tuesday page, as I'll put up all of the resources available. The recording should be up by no later than the end of today. I also invite you guys to please fill out the feedback survey. We love hearing from you, and it gives us some ideas about what you might be interested in to see for future sessions. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.